Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Derbyshire Dales series. The Dales contain some of the most beautiful British scenery. It's a magnificent area. Here's one of its 109 civil parishes. Hello out there, Ashbourne. It's the first time I've been in your lovely town here in the Derbyshire Dales. I've just spent a night in this Travelodge Ashbourne, which you can find right on the southernmost outskirts of the actual town. It's within today's parish, actually. The whole area that this is in, this is a whole like a little industrial estate. It's got a pub on it, it's got an Aldi store as well as this Travelodge, is all part of the parish of Clifton and Compton. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Clifton and Compton, Hillslope Farm. Welcome to Ashbourne, everybody. Our first look at a parish close to the West Derbyshire town comes in the form of Clifton and Compton, although really the name of this place is completely inaccurate. In theory, this should be called Clifton and Hangingbridge because Compton is actually a suburb of Ashbourne and it isn't within the parish boundaries. Mind you, I can explain why. In 917 AD, when Derby was conquered by the English, Compton was divided into two townships. The eastern portion lay in Sturston parish and the rest was in Clifton and Compton. When administrative boundaries were redrawn in the mid-19th century, it was absorbed into Ashbourne, but its name wasn't dropped from Clifton and Compton parish. Still to this day, therefore, Clifton and Compton continues as that very same entity, despite Compton being within Ashbourne. Madness. Clifton, though, is a lovely village. In the 1880s, much of Clifton was owned by the Smith family. Good name, good name. They made their wealth from cheese processing and had several factories in the vicinity. They lived at Clifton Hall and were great donators to the village, providing money for playgrounds, a cricket pitch, and for Holy Trinity Church. Let's have a wander. We start in the morning twilight right on the boundary with Ashbourne on Carnation Way. Technically speaking, this isn't Hangingbridge, but it's close enough to be included in the same section. This area features Ashbourne Travelodge and also has an Aldi store and a pub called Stepping Stones. The Travelodge has been here the longest, but the Aldi store and the pub are much newer. This was all once part of an old railway, the Ashbourne line, which ran for 33 miles from Buxton to Uttoxeter via Ashbourne. The Aldi was opened in 2015, but the Stepping Stones pub is a little older. This was built between 2009 and 2011, and its name is a reference to one of Ashbourne's most well-known tourist attractions. The Stepping Stones are just a couple of miles away on the River Dove, which became popular with tourists in Victorian times. We'll be seeing those stones in a future episode. For now, we're going to Hangingbridge Village. Hangingbridge is right on the border with Mayfield. Its name is a reference to an actual bridge that spans the Dove. Some people believe it was named following the defeat of Bonnie Prince Charlie in Derby in 1745. Legend has it, as his forces made their way back to the north, they took their frustrations out on the local villagers. As they passed through Mayfield, they were supposedly caught and hanged from gallows over the side of the bridge. However, it was already referred to as Hangingbridge some 200 years earlier, because it was originally built as an early type of suspension bridge. That's a bit less gruesome. Well, here we are then in Clifton village. It's still a bit dark, as you can probably tell from my surroundings, but it will get lighter as we go on through this village. It's not a very big village, this. It won't take me very long to cover it. The most interesting thing, I think, about Clifton is this green space that you can see behind me, because on there's a football goal, but it's no football goal like you've ever seen before. It's all to do with the Royal Shrovetide football game, which takes place in February. Let's go and have a look at the goal and see what it's all about. Clifton is one of the two villages around Ashbourne that has one of these, a Royal Shrovetide football goal. The other is in Sturston. The Royal Shrovetide football match is nothing like any kind of football you've ever known. It takes place over 2 days, Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday every year. The game starts in Ashbourne town centre, and the object is to get a ball to your own goal, not the opponent's. To score a goal, you have to tap the ball 3 times on the stone circle on the goalpost while standing in the river. Each of the 2 goals were originally millstones. The mills have long since been demolished though. The 2 teams that play the game are known as the Uppards and the Downards, terms which are local dialect for upwards and downwards. The Uppards are traditionally Ashbourne natives who were born north of Henmore Brook, and Downards are those who were born to the south. This goal at Clifton is for the Downards, which is explained on a handy information board nearby. Later this year, when the actual game takes place, I will be there to film it all. And I'll tell you this much now, folks, I'll be lending my support to the Downards. This building nearby is the Clifton Mayfield railway station. The Ashbourne line ran right through this part of the village. After climbing a shallow hill, we're into civilization. Here's the church, which will be the last landmark on our main walk. Clifton Village is a gorgeous place. It has several houses which wouldn't look out of place in a period drama, and some are worth a lot of money. Clifton's pub is called the Cock Inn. It's a large 3-room building which reopened in 2018 after some 6 months of closure. Throughout the year, the pub hosts several events, including a beer festival in August and a gin and rum festival in September. There's regular live music here too. Opposite the pub is an attractive terraced row. The end house, the Birches, dates from 1841. Speaking of rows, here's another one. These are Cock Hill cottages, and it's the end one of these 3 which is the most interesting. That's because it used to be the post office once upon a time. Clifton has no post office or even a shop these days though. The house next door to this is an old bakery, and beyond them both is the Clifton Smith Hall. That's the village hall, which was built in the 1930s before being extensively remodelled in 2010. It takes its name from a former parish priest, Frederick Clifton Smith, who donated the land on which it stands in his will. It's a well-used building. Right outside the hall is a bus stop. Clifton only has one service, the 609 school bus. Otherwise, no buses stop here. I'm hoping though that people still pass by here on a regular basis. If they do, they might spot my card on the parish notice board. There are 97 still to go to in the Derbyshire Dales. Over the road is the old parsonage, a large white house partially obscured by trees. We're approaching a road junction now. Either side of it are 2 community facilities. First up we have Clifton Playground and Playing Field. This has a decent selection of equipment, and a small stream runs through it towards Henmore Brook. On the other side of the junction is the only educational establishment in the village, Clifton C of E Primary School. This dates back to 1855 when it was built to cater for just 89 children. It's since been modernised and extended. Beyond the school, you're then onto the old Clifton Road. This used to be the main street once upon a time. It's a dead end now because the village is bypassed by the modern A515, which runs from Lichfield to Buxton, and there have been calls in the past for a new stretch to form a bypass around Ashbourne. To the north, towards Ashbourne, is a small hamlet known as Clifton Cross. This, though, is looking south. One of the things I've been asked in the past while I've been walking around villages is why I wear this high-vis vest. Well, here is a perfect example of why I do. This road here has no footpath on the right hand side or the left hand side, so I'm having to walk on the road. And of course, with it being slightly murky, a bit dark, people have got the lights on. Be bright, be seen, because otherwise you never know, there could well be an accident. So yeah, the high-vis is coming into its own this morning. Thankfully, this road's not all that long. We will be diving off it shortly to the right to go to our next landmark. This stretch of the A515 is known as the Clifton Bypass. There's not a lot on this part of the road, but this was the only way to access Fairways Garden Centre. In 1959, Herbert Plumley bought Holly's Farm, which was located where Fairway sits today. On his retirement in 1978, his son Pip ran the civil engineering firm Midroads from the farm and later opened a fruit farm on the surrounding fields. This would eventually turn into the garden centre you see here now, and it opened its doors to all in 1998. Highly successful, Fairways was voted the Midlands Garden Centre of the Year in 2023. Now we've left the A515 via a short footpath onto Chapel Lane. Before the days of the Clifton Bypass, this used to be called Mayfield Road. Along here there's a cemetery. This is the main burial place in the village, and it's actually a churchyard extension as opposed to a cemetery. It was opened in 1904 and it contains one Commonwealth war grave. That would be Harry Leeson, a member of the 14th Battalion Sherwood Foresters who died in World War I. It's residential for a short way after the cemetery until we reach the entrance drive to Clifton Cricket Club on the left-hand side. Clifton Cricket Club have played at their Chapel Lane ground for well over a century. Their original ground was on the other side of the A515. The club purchased the ground in 1957, and many local families like the Grimshaws, the Melbournes and the Fosters have all been associated with the club. Moving on up the road, next we have an old Wesleyan chapel. This was built in 1860. Clifton also once had a primitive Methodist chapel too, built in 1830 on this same road. However, it seems to have been demolished, as from here there are no buildings which it could possibly have been. Now we're making our way back to the village centre and towards some of the grandest houses in Clifton. The most notable of these is the exquisite Clifton Hall. On your screens now, the wealthy Smith family, major landowners here, lived in this very house. They amassed their wealth thanks to their cheese factories. In 1948, the hall was divided into two homes and was sold in 1950. The last of the Smiths to live in the hall was Frederick Clifton Smith, the man who we spoke about earlier. The hall isn't the only impressive building here. Check out all of these obscenely massive houses which line the streets around the church, like Clifton House and the Croft. They are two of the 8 listed buildings in the parish and surely worth 7-figure sums. Just before we get to the church, standing at the point where the road splits into 2 pieces, is Clifton's War Memorial. This is a sandstone cross which bears a total of 20 names, 16 from World War I and 4 from World War II. Well, talk about leaving the best until last. Some of those houses are fantastic pieces of architecture. And speaking of impressive architecture, our very last landmark on this walk around Clifton is, of course, the church, hiding away behind those trees over there. Holy Trinity Church stands right in the centre of the village. It was built in 1845 to the designs of Henry Isaac Stevens. The apse and bell tower were added later, in 1868, by Slater and Carpenter. The plot of land it occupies originally had a former religious building upon it, a chapel of ease, which was dedicated to St Mary. That fell into disuse and decay and was demolished in 1750. Holy Trinity is built of sandstone with a banded plain and fish scale tile roof. It consists of a nave, a porch, 2 north vestries and a chancel, which internally has a richly tiled floor and mosaic dado. The stained glass in the 3 apse windows is by Clayton and Bell and dates from 1882. There's also stained glass in most other windows, an octagonal stone font, and a royal coat of arms dated 1926. To finish with, we're taking a look at Ashbourne Golf Club, which occupies most of the eastern portion of the parish boundaries. It was originally established as Ashbourne and Dove Valley Golf Club in 1886, making it Derbyshire's oldest private members club. It was sited elsewhere at that time too. In fact, this club has moved around a lot until 1909, when it came to Clifton and a 9-hole course was built on land which was formerly owned by Holly's Farm. Further land was later obtained from Lodge Farm, allowing expansion to its present 18 holes. It also features Restaurant 1886, named after the club's founding year, which is open to members and the general public. With extensive views towards Thorpe Cloud, Dovedale and the Weaver Hills, Ashbourne Golf Club provides both a scenic and enjoyable golfing experience for all. And I do hope watching this episode has been enjoyable as well. Join me next week in the Derbyshire Dales, where we'll be seeing another Ashbourne village, this time one with a big hole in a big wall. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.